What starts here changes the world. I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers.
I can't hear you.
I am talking to myself again. There we go. I said, welcome to the Cares Project podcast. Today we have with us Hyapatia Lee. Um, you're a former adult actress and now you um, advocacy work and also um, native medicine, if I'm correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
native strength.
yes. You want to introduce yourself to our audience, and obviously we have my daughter, the host.
Yes. Well, you said it very nicely. I do medicine wheel teachings. I've been very lucky to study with a lot of the elders, and I'm sharing what I have learned with them, in particular, the medicine wheel teachings as they pertain to mental health. I think it's kind of sad. There are so many people in need of mental health care or someone to help them through grief and stress, anxiety, the things that we all face. But the mental health care system today is less than 150 years old. Freud is known as the father of psychoanalysis, and he did his work less than 150 years ago. So it's basically in its infancy. And they have two main tools, and that is medications and talk therapy. And they certainly have done some good for some people. I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that, but it would be nice if we had more tools in our toolbox. That's what the native strength medicine wheel teachings are all about.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons why there wasn't as much focus on it because people did things a lot differently where you didn't have as much mental health problems. Like, I mean, if you watched in the last 6 years, I think everybody's mental health has probably gotten worse because, I mean, we've been living in a dumpster fire, let's just say.
Yeah, it's well put. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think these things are really important. So you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself because I know you've had a long, interesting situation. You said health problems as well that you had mentioned.
Yeah. My health problems started in the 70s, in the late 70s. Um, my pituitary gland died. The pituitary gland is the master gland. So it's pretty difficult to live without it. You have to replace everything that the master gland would normally make. All these different hormones work with and against each other. So when you adjust one, you have to adjust others. One goes up, the others go down, or the others go up with it. Some go up, some go down. It's really challenging and debilitating. One thing leads to another. If you have deficits in certain things, it's going to affect your entire body. So I've wound up with a plethora of problems. And, when your body is failing, it's a real mental health challenge, you know.
Yes.
And I'm not the only one. I think there's more people who are dealing with some sort of disability or deficit in one way, shape, or form than there are totally healthy people. The disabled minority, if you want to call it a minority, is the only one that any one of us can join at any second without any fault to ourselves. You can get hit by a drunk driver or somebody that ran a stop sign, and there you go, you're in a wheelchair and you didn't do anything wrong, you know?
No, actually, a friend of ours, he went to dive off of a roof into a pool, and now he's paralyzed.
Oh, bless his heart.
Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't
That's the
imagine
shallow.
that would be such a challenge to deal with.
yeah. I mean, it is tough. You have to definitely have to overcome and become mentally stronger in order to deal with it. Right?
Yeah. It changes your path. You have set plans in childhood and worked for these plans and dreams and hopes, whatever career or pastime you might like to enjoy. And all of a sudden, your world has changed, and these are no longer options available to you. What do you do with your life? And now you've got grief because you're grieving the things that you had hoped to do with your life that you can't, and the challenges you have every day with just living. It's not easy.
So did they give you a reason? Did they something happen? Like, was there an accident, or they just said it just quit?
Yeah, I had too much blood loss after a pregnancy. The pituitary
Y-
gland
y-
grows to at least twice its normal size during pregnancy to produce all the hormones necessary to sustain pregnancy. And then it's a big thing hanging by a thin stalk
mhm.
of blood supply in the sella turcica in the center of your brain. Turkish saddle is what that means, because there's a bone structure like that, and it sits right in the center of that. And it swells, and then you've got this one little stalk that it's hanging by. So it's hanging by a thread. And then you lose your blood supply, that stalk withers and becomes smaller. And because that pituitary gland is so heavy now because of pregnancy, it just falls to the bottom of that bone structure, the sella turcica, with no blood supply, and it dies. It's
Oh,
called Sheehan syndrome.
It's
oh,
called what syndrome?
Sheehan's syndrome.
wow,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yeah, and now that we've got all of these restrictions on abortions and health care for women who happen to be pregnant, I'm afraid we're going to see a lot more people suffering from my condition, unfortunately.
I, I've never heard of that before. I mean,
Yeah, it's supposedly rare. And you look it up in the textbooks and on YouTube or in Google, and it'll say, oh, you only found in third world countries. Well, guess what? We're a third world country because there's a lot of it happening here. And the more women they're having bleed out in the parking lot with miscarriages because they don't want to treat them because they're afraid they'll get prosecuted, the more women are going to have extreme blood loss like that and end up like me.
What? I'm sorry. You said that people don't want to treat people for miscarriages for fear
Right.
of what? Prosecution?
Prosecution.
Why?
Yeah, because of this new Trump administration ban on abortion. So
Well,
when a woman is pregnant and she's like bleeding and the baby's like definitely going to die, the procedure that they do to save the mother is technically an abortion. It's a D&C, a dilation and curettage. So it's the same exact thing. The doctor is doing the same exact movements and procedure that they would do if she was having an abortion. But that's the only way to stop the bleeding.
well, so I had a miscarriage and
I'm sorry.
they actually have to test what they actually have to test to see if the HCG has gone to zero, like the baby has actually died, and they have to prove that it's dead.
Gonadotropin.
And then
Yeah.
after that, like, because yeah, you might.
Yeah, I lost you there. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? All
Yes,
right,
dear.
so like when it comes to pregnancy, like obviously people can bleed during pregnancy sometimes, sometimes that's just
Right.
normal, it happens. But
Yes.
when I had a miscarriage, they tested and waited for the HCG to drop completely to zero. So I tested a couple times, blood test, and when it was finally at zero, then they're like, let's see if it passes by itself. Sometimes it will. If it doesn't, then they're like, okay, well, we have to force it out because then you'll die if it
Right.
doesn't. So then
Right.
they actually, in Canada, now I don't know about the States, this was when I was in Canada. They gave me abortion pills. They didn't want to do the DNC. They should have done the DNC after the fact because you can still die because it
Right.
can
You
get
can
infected
still
if they don't clean it
retain.
out properly. But yeah, our
Exactly.
healthcare system is trash. But my point here is like they, and because they didn't do the DNC, they didn't give me just abortion pills once. They took me to another hospital in another province and gave it to me again. So that also can kill people. But regardless, the point here is there shouldn't be anything up for question when it comes to women who are having miscarriages because the doctors are required to prove that the baby is dead by doing a series of testing, predominantly the HCG, to demonstrate that the baby is no longer alive. And if it's at 0, well, now it's dead. So you're supposed to just have a dead baby inside your body. That doesn't count. After that, you're just doing treatment to get a dead human out of someone's body. If it decays in there, I had so many complications, and I was able to actually get the treatment. Like for over a year, I was bleeding and having problems. I can't even imagine people being in the street while that's happening, bleeding out. I was on the floor of the hospital in pain because you're literally giving birth. Your body is trying to
Yes,
give birth to a dead
exactly.
human. And it is the worst contractions ever. Like, I can't even imagine how that even makes sense or how they can justify something like that, legally speaking, because again, medically, you demonstrate that the child is not even alive. It's dead.
I think the problem is that the human chorionic gonadotropin (HCG) hasn't dropped low enough to indicate total death yet. But the woman is bleeding profusely, and at least give her a transfusion, for goodness sakes. I can't hear you, honey. Lost you again.
Go ahead, Trina.
Just
There
speak.
you
Can
are.
you speak?
Yeah, the whole issue is that they should be treating people. Like
Yeah,
if you're not an abortion and a miscarriage are two different things.
Right.
And a doctor can
right.
tell when something's happened. So they should be able to look at that and say, okay, this person is miscarrying, deal with it. Because
Yeah,
if the baby stays there and starts to get decay, the mother's gonna die.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right?
So
Like I
what's the
mean,
purpose? You're killing them both, you know? And
exactly.
if you're just
And
having a little spotting, that's one thing. But if you're just bleeding profusely, miscarriage is pretty much imminent at that point.
it's a terrifying experience because again, if things are not done properly, oh, I think it's working again because I heard doubling. If things are not done properly, not only can you die, if you live, you can have the chance of not having children again if like things are not healed properly or they're not doing the proper procedures after the
Yeah,
fact to make sure that you're in proper recovery. I luckily can
exactly.
still have children, but the doctor, like after a year of like all that situation, they're like, I'm surprised you're not dead because that is such a dangerous thing to do. I can't even imagine the justification for letting women just, and they do it here in Canada too, except there is no justification. They just let you sit and bleed out. And they're like, we're not going to do in DNC because we just don't feel like it. Our healthcare here is terrible. But in the States, using the justification of, oh, we're afraid to go to jail for abortion, so we're just going to let people die in like waiting is just, that's like
And they have.
inhumane. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, you're right. And they have.
okay.
Women have died.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
good.
I feel like it's an excuse.
It is.
I
It's,
think
it's these people who are basing healthcare not on science and facts, but on their emotions.
I think they're taking it out of a like out of somebody's taking something out of a proportion because
Right.
the
Yeah.
Supreme Court sent it back to the states for the state to decide, which it should be because it's a state issue. Now, when the people are going in there, somebody's saying, okay, I just want to go and don't want to have my kid too bad. That's different than I'm having a miscarriage.
Yes, exactly.
Fundamentally different because somebody's saying I don't want to have my kid. There's no health risk to that person because a miscarriage, especially the further along you go, the more
Oh,
problematic it becomes.
Right.
So
exactly.
I don't see how like somebody's doing something wrong in the medical field without treating somebody who's having a miscarriage because if there's a miscarriage, the baby's going to die.
Right.
The body's expelling it.
And
Something's
it's-
wrong.
And especially if you have like a blood type that you're against the baby's blood type, and that's also decaying inside of you, you're just going to be doubly poisoning yourself. Like if you're universal donor and your baby's not, and you're also having like the miscarriage, you're doubly poisoning yourself. It's extremely
Yeah.
dangerous.
So
Here in the United States, as a woman, a pregnant woman, your rights depend on where you live. If you live in a red state that bases all of their laws on the Bible and Bible thumpers and what they believe should be right, who these are the people who have said no abortions ever, no matter what, no reason. So if you've got a tubal pregnancy, well, you're screwed. And these people are prosecuting women who are leaving the state to go to a blue state where they can get proper health care. They're prosecuting them.
Well, I mean, this is where a lot of the issues lie, because there's if you have a tubal pregnancy, the tube is going to burst. A lot of the times, the baby's already dead.
Die. Yeah.
It's already dead, and then it begins to expand anyway, and so they go ahead and remove it. This is fundamentally different than saying, well, I just don't want to have a
Isn't
kid.
that an ectopic pregnancy?
Right?
Exactly.
Because
the people that are making the legislation don't understand that difference. They are prosecuting women. There are women in jail right now who have had miscarriages. And they're saying that they did it on purpose. 3 out of 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage.
Right.
And oftentimes we don't even know it. But when we do, it's not like we caused it. And then they're prosecuting them for mishandling deceased remains. If they happen to be on the toilet and it passes on the toilet, then they go to jail. They're supposed to catch it. You know what I'm talking about. You've had a miscarriage. I've had 3. So yeah, how do you catch it?
That's out of control. I'm sorry, because I mean, with my ex-wife, she had to, when you locked the baby, she had to take the DNC pills. They were like, they were going to give her DNC. I was like, no, take the pills, because when you take a DNC, you have a chance of them making a mistake
and damaging.
So I was like, take the pills, right? So she had to just, it just went. So how do you control that? Just, I've got to catch it while I'm cramping and all that other stuff.
Well, I'm cramping and crying because I'm grieving, and I'm supposed to catch all my blood.
The fact is, when I was going through the miscarriage, I needed help showering. I could barely stand. It was a mess. I had to bathe in the tub. I could barely stand. I don't know how they expect, and all that blood pouring out of you, and you're literally hyperventilating and feel like you're constantly giving birth.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to hold your hands and just catch, and then I'm supposed to save it? How? In what situation?
And on the other hand, I don't like the idea of when people use abortion as birth control. I should have had
between the two.
2 more kids, and this is where my issue lies. Her mother, and she told me she had miscarriages. And one day we're out having some drinks, and she's like, "Oh, I had abortions," and I was like, "Excuse me." I got up and I left. I was like, "I don't want to talk to you." I was mad because I love kids, right? And I mean,
you should have had a say in the matter,
right?
Yes. And I was just like, I would have always taken care of my kids. This, a man takes care of his responsibility. This is the way I think. Right. And I'm like, my daughter's always wanted siblings, and I was just like, so that aspect I don't like. I think that there needs to be consequences for behavior before this happens,
right?
Because a lot of these things are preventable, and if you can't do certain things, then don't do it.
Right.
I mean, because I knew as a kid when I was 16, I was like, okay, you know what, this may blow up in my face one day, but if it does, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with it, right? This is what was in my head, right? And when I was in university, I had to drop out of school because I had to go get my daughter, and so forth. And she's, actually, Child Protective Services took my child unprovoked with no reason whatsoever. And that
happens a lot here too.
Yes. Yeah, and especially her being Indigenous, me being Black. I mean,
they documented that from the jump. I wasn't even registered at that time. I was freshly born, and they documented that I was an Indigenous kid.
But they knew from
they knew from my parents. But I mean, just the fact that
you know, like you don't even get a chance to like breathe, and then they're like, yeah, we're taking this Indigenous kid. Like, what the heck?
Actually,
But also the fact that there are people out here that actually are intentionally getting pregnant just for the purpose of like having, I can see women talking about this online.
I
I
can't
don't
hear
agree
you.
with abortion. Oh, you're actually
So
It's
I'm
just a
so
little
I'm saying is
quiet.
like there's a lot of people who go out of their way just to get pregnant just so that they can have abortions, and there's women online talking about this. There was a girl on My Strange Addiction who said she was addicted to getting pregnant. The guy was giving her the semen and she was inseminating herself with like some baster or something and getting pregnant and then just going and aborting the babies, and this was her
That's so
addiction. And
sick.
this is what, yeah, there's a lot of people doing this. So what bothers me about people doing abortion just for the hell of it, not because it's a medical emergency and the baby has actually died, going the miscarriage or whatever, is the fact that if someone was to assault a woman and she lost the baby, they're going to, and she died, they're going to jail for double homicide. Like, or if the
They
baby dies, they're
should.
going to jail for murder of the baby. However, I mean, that's what's legally supposed to happen, and it has happened in the past. However, what frustrates me about going after women who have had genuine miscarriage, a lot of times women gone through miscarriage, they're being abused, and the abusers get off. Like a lot of women are being beaten into miscarriage. That's what happened to me. The
Oh, I'm
person's
so
being
sorry.
investigated years and years later now, but how many people are victims of actual cause of miscarriage or loss, but then they're going to go to jail because they're the ones who didn't catch the fetus properly, or
Yeah,
like they needed the treatment.
exactly. Exactly. Or, for example, when you have Sheehan syndrome, and that was my first pregnancy, and it ended in a miscarriage, and I had all of this blood loss. It was my first miscarriage. I had no idea how much blood loss you were supposed to have. I went to the hospital, and I told them I have lost so much blood that I'm dizzy when I sit up. I feel like I'm going to faint when I walk. Do you think I need a transfusion? They didn't even test. They just said, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Well, fast forward years later, we find out the truth. But in the interim, I had 3 miscarriages in the first trimester, and I lost a baby at 20 weeks.
Were you in Indiana when this happened?
Yes, and I had
Okay.
not been diagnosed yet.
Uh,
So if the laws were in place now, then that are now, I'd be in jail.
was this in
Because they
this?
would say, you've had 3 miscarriages in the first trimester and you lost a baby at 20 weeks. That's 4 babies you've lost.
Was
What
this?
are you doing?
Was
Well, why
this?
don't doctors get off your butts and find out what's wrong with me?
Was this late
Because I'm
'70s,
sympathetic.
'70s, early '80s?
This was in the 80s and 90s. When I lost my baby at 20 weeks, which is halfway through the pregnancy, was in 1997.
Because I just wanted to say no, that because the medical system has always been terrible, and I mean, you look at things like the Tuskegee experiments, and then you look at the forced sterilizations and so forth that
Exactly.
they did a lot of the native people, they did it to the black people in the
And
states,
black people,
and
yes,
so forth. And this is where the treatment is it's insane. Like I mean,
it's
light
intentional.
night and day. This is why when it comes to they say go to the doctor or the hospital, I was just like, yeah, no. I remember the Tuskegee experiments. No, right? Like, and
exactly,
so forth.
exactly.
And the
Yeah,
treatment is they're probably saying, well, oh no, don't worry, she doesn't need anything. She'll tough it out, right? Because if
yeah.
you go to talk to the nurses, like I was going to go into nursing while I was going to
Oh,
school. I was going to be a doctor, and I was doing some,
cool.
and so when I was working as a healthcare aide, and then one of the nurses, they would talk about the native women that would come in, and they thought that they were completely different because a lot of them they didn't like they would scream. They would say they would scream at their first kid, but after that, it was just like not as they were just normal,
They knew what to expect.
right? And
Yeah,
where most other people were like screaming their heads off and so forth. And so it's like they treated them like they didn't have the same pain tolerance. They did the same thing with black people, right?
yes,
Yeah,
I know they
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with all women too at one point in time in history. There are tricks that you can do, like the elders told me get one of those combs that's about that long, and put it in your hand so that the teeth are right here, and you squeeze it into your hand so that the teeth go deep into your palm, and get it in both hands. So when you have a contraction, you squeeze that and it goes into your hand. That hits a nerve that is somehow connected to your uterus, and it helps with the cramping. So when you're in
Wow.
contractions trying to give birth, those combs really helped. My second son was born with no medication at all, and just those combs. And my first
Wow.
son was a cesarean, and my
Yeah, they
last son
don't.
was a cesarean. So I've
Oh,
been
wow.
pregnant 7 times to have three
Oh my
kids.
goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you know what is interesting about that is, well, for one, the way that they treat women in general in the hospital, but also like minority women, because there
yes,
were the eugenics laws for a long time where they were
yeah,
sterilizing people. Even on the news in Canada, they were saying just a couple years ago they sterilized like 50 plus Indigenous women. My granny, when she came to Canada, like in the like 70s or whatever, she said that, and she's a nurse, her and her mother were nurses, and they said that they were going in and like sterilizing Black and Indigenous women in the hospitals. And she was like, when she got pregnant, the doctor, when she gave birth, was like, oh, I have to go in and fix something. And the nurse told her what was going on, and she was like, absolutely not, there's no way in hell. She told the doctor, why don't you go and fix your sisters, fix your mother, your wife, and everyone in your family, and leave me alone, don't touch me. And she left. But it's
good
becoming
for her.
increasingly difficult, for one, for women to have safety having any type of child birth in the hospital, because if you don't do what they say, then they're just going to snatch your children. And for one, they're not going to give you the treatment you need, which will make you more sick. But on top of that, there was studies that recently come out showing that the type of work that they're putting women in society today is so damaging over the cumulative years. We cannot take it because we're more emotional beings, that it
Yeah.
like destroys our entire body and it starts to kill ourselves. This woman just died of exhaustion and mental and physical exhaustion, just from
Oh
being
my.
like a single mom. Like, it's becoming harder
Well,
and
I can
harder
see how that
for
would happen.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah, women are literally dying and getting autoimmune diseases like crazy, and their children are developing more autoimmune diseases because the mom's not able to stay home with the child and give them that emotional safety and
Yeah.
security so that they can grow a strong immune system. And that's why, like this whole thing that our society is structured under is literally to kill our families.
So true. So true. I think they were still sterilizing Navajo women on the reservation into the 80s. Into
They did it.
the
They did it here in Canada. Just the last one was like within the last 5 or 6 years. 6 years, I think. Right before COVID started, I think was the last time they sterilized someone.
That's
Just
horrible.
I want to just kind of go back to where we are going about the exploitation, because in Canada, and the rates are similar in the United States. In Canada, the natives make up the indigenous, like Inuit and Métis as well, make up a little bit less than 5% of the population. 51% of the children trafficked and 50% of the women trafficked are of native ancestry, and that less than 5% of the population. I think it's like about 2.9% in the United States, and they're trafficked at 10 times the national rate, which is
Yeah.
like, when you have to begin to sit down and think about this, this is a huge problem
It's
that no.
outrageous.
Yes, and when my daughter's in the States, like, I mean, DHS was going into the reserves and trafficking people, like taking the natives off the reserve
Well,
track. They do the same. The RCMP here in Canada involved in trafficking the women as well.
they done it to me.
To me, your thing, like, ICE took me, even though I was fully documented native, and well, the DHS gave me to ICE when I crossed the border. They had all my documents, my native card, birth certificate, driver's license, passport, all valid. My whole genealogical history dating back to before Canada was even a country, from the
Yeah.
government archives. And like, because obviously we're American jurisdiction, all the every record you can think of, land scripts, everything. They gave me to ICE. ICE trafficked me through the actual reservations to get me to like a federal like military facility that they forced me to stay in, try to make me go through asylum proceedings, not ever gonna get it because I'm already native, and then try to deport me to like back to Canada. And then the Canadian consulate in California had to tell them to let me go. They're like, nah, bro, she's native. What you're doing is illegal. She can't. What are you trying to get us to do? Like, you can't do
Crazy.
that. So then they
Yeah.
like released me, but then they forced me to live with single American men under a full surveillance tracking program as if I was like a migrant child from Mexico,
Oh my
and then was
God.
threatening me that if I try to run away, they'll send me to like a third country I never been to. So then I couldn't even run away and help myself. Those people just ended up trafficking me.
Honey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're here today. You know, you hear so much about missing and murdered Indigenous women and children. You
yes,
know, I'm just glad you're here today.
the worst
'Cause
part, the
it
worst,
could have been,
the worst part is they took her under the safe third country agreement that doesn't apply to Canadians or Americans, like straight up, and much less not native, right? Like, I mean, so
yeah.
so sending her back would have been an impossibility because she's was born in Canada, right? Like, I mean, they couldn't even do that to me because, like, how do you sit them and say that I was born in Canada? Like, how would you do that? Like, that doesn't make sense. But this again is part of the the problem here. I just want to take a short break because I've got to just play this commercial, but we'll be right back.
Hello friends, my name is Keisha and I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. And I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. My trafficking began in Saskatchewan, moved into Alberta, and even crossed into the United States. I was stalked, hunted, and ignored by the very systems over the last 5 years that were meant to protect me. This is why, with my father Dale Richardson, we started the Keris Project. This is an Indigenous, survivor-led movement for humanity dedicated to exposing trafficking, government corruption, and holding institutions accountable. One of the most powerful tools that we are using is the petitions for redress of grievances. These are lawful constitutional actions rooted in Canadian and US law, and in treaties that tie us together across provinces, across states, and even across borders. These petitions are precedent-setting. They create a binding record. They demand accountability while representing reconciliation in action. Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working side by side to preserve liberty for all. But we cannot do this alone. We need your help to keep this movement alive, to raise awareness and to build a legacy of justice for Indigenous women, for trafficking survivors, and for families everywhere. Thank you. Please stand with us. Your support makes this work possible. Together we can restore justice, heal families, and defend freedom. And I will close with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. And men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Thank you.
And so if anybody wants to support the work that we're doing against human trafficking, you can go to they have the QR codes, or you can go to mypillow.com/Keris, or you can go to the links in the ticker, or if you're watching on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or Vocal, you can also see the links in the description. And with what I sit down and say, like, I look at what's happening in the world, and I'm a Christian, and I'm not like the people that I believe in mercy for people. I look at what Jesus did, and he showed people compassion. I see a lot of not compassion going on everywhere. And I don't look at, and when it comes down to things like harm, like I talk to people and they wouldn't deal with people on the issue of abuse because of their political opinion. And for me, I'm sorry. I don't care what you think about politics. As far as I'm concerned, 99% of politicians are criminals. I don't care on both sides. They're all criminals, right? Like this is fun. I look at, did you do something right or wrong? That's the issue. But when it comes down to abuse, I don't care what your political persuasion is. And especially if it's a child, you could be my worst enemy. I'm not going to let somebody rape your kid. Like, let's be real here. Like,
Yeah.
this is where we're at in the world.
Yeah.
I think people forget that the right wing and the left wing are still part of the same bird.
Yes, they are. Because quite frankly, when I was in the States and I was going around, like I was there for a little more than half a decade, like 6 years, and when I was going around begging people for help, but also giving the research of my dad's whistleblowing stuff, telling them what's going on with the corruption of the COVID to try and help fix the engineering problems, like about the stuff my dad was talking about, everything that people are, talking about now that everyone is just using as trigger words for money, like the treason, the bioterrorism, and all this other stuff, the trafficking. It's like stuff we were outlining way before anyone was, comfortable saying it online, before it was cool. All the people that we primarily spoke to and dealt with were Christian Republicans, and they were abusing me the most and exploiting me in the situation. And then they would tell people that I was a dirty Mexican so that people should just let me get raped and trafficked. And that was their excuse. And I was like, aren't you Christians? Didn't you say the Republican Party's supposed to be good? People who were forcing us to work for free, saying that they would help us, and then putting me and my dad in exploitive situations even further to try and get what they want from me, or try to say that they were going to help, but then when they brought me, then they were trying to set me up to be like their house slave, their sex slave, like their gardener, all sorts of things, trying to make me like labor trafficking. Everyone on the left and the right that's in the political party, they're all the same. Like I
Yeah.
even had politicians using my face on pamphlets to put out to entire neighborhoods without my permission. I wasn't getting paid. Like America in my mind is like, who can plagiarize and exploit the best and not get caught?
You're
Like
right.
who's just better at it? So it's like when
You're
people are like, oh, well, this one or that one is better. No, that's why we, the people, are the ones who are responsible to hold people accountable, because no matter who's in power position, if we do our job, they have to listen to us. They derive their just powers by the consent of the governed, which means we are the ones who decide. They work for us. We pay them. So
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
I couldn't believe it. Everything in politics right now to me is theater, and it's disgusting to me because at the end of the day, it's all the same. And something needs to get done because I'm tired of people's feelings being mixed into things, and people using like their own sick idea of what should happen, and then there's people dying and actually suffering who don't need to be, who actually want to help and have a solution, but those are the people they target because they're all running a scam at the top. They're all like literal scammers.
You're right. And I think they're all allergic to the truth. They can't,
Yes.
politicians, they can't seem to tell the truth. And if you fact check any of the things they say, we were talking about the abortion issue and miscarriages and all that, the ignorance that surrounds all that. Of course, we don't want to abort a baby that is loved and is healthy and the mother is healthy and all that. That's just tragic. But let's get some science in here. These people that think you can replant an ectopic pregnancy, the people
Right.
that don't know the statistics behind abortion or miscarriages, rather, and the people that don't understand that you can't catch it. That's sometimes just literally, it's like trying to catch diarrhea.
Literally.
But
Thinking that.
these are things that people have done that are just don't make any sense, right? Like,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if you're having an issue and you're like in a miscarriage, deal with it, right? Like that's what should be done. And
Yeah.
this is where things are getting off base. But this whole issue, like even with, okay, for example, recently Epstein files, like this is where for me the line in the sand is drawn. Like
Yes.
I was a whistleblower in COVID. Like my background's mechanical engineering. I'm a technologist. So when I saw what they put out for the the infection controls. I'm like, this can't work. I said, if I did this, I would go to prison. The government shouldn't be doing this, because I said, someone's going to die. My first thought, my kids could die. Someone's kid could die, their loved one. So I was like, do this right and help these things. Well, when I found out they didn't want to do this, they didn't want anything done. And then what I found out is that all of these people that are involved in doing these things, they're somehow involved in connected to trafficking.
Yeah.
And the government involvement in human trafficking is astounding.
Yep.
It is astounding. And
I
I'm
had no idea until the Epstein file thing. And now it's just so disgusting. I mean, things that
Yeah.
I would never, in my wildest dreams, have even thought of. And these people are doing
Yeah.
it. The cannibalism, the adrenochrome, and all of that stuff is just blows my mind. And I talk about both parties. These Epstein files, they are, both parties. You've got people
Yeah.
that aren't even known for their political affiliations, like Bill Gates and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's everybody who's
Yeah.
in a position of power.
Yes.
The sickness, I
When
don't get it. I just don't get it. People like
when
that shouldn't be breathing air on this planet,
no, they
They're
should
not
not.
humans. Yeah.
No, when I was in the shelter for victims of human trafficking, actually, I was in many on and off the street in shelters trying to get help in US. And they would come in, they knew I was Native. Every shelter also has ICE and DHS connected to a shelter. So there's an office where there's ICE agents and DHS sitting there in the shelter. So they know that you are Native, or if you're regular white American or Black American, whatever, and they categorize you accordingly, and then they get money for like you coming in as a Native, because there's more government programs for that allocated or whatever. So they would get the money for me, say they were going to sign me up for all these programs to help me, and then once they got their kickback, they would just kick me out. And the shelters actually said that they knew I was telling the truth about ICE trafficking the Natives, because they said that most Natives are so ambiguous that they could send them to most any country and they would be none the wiser. Like it's very
Yeah.
easy essentially to traffic Natives. So they said that they send them over the southern border all the time. And so the shelters were like, this is just something that's normal to us. But it's funny because you also have ICE in your shelters. So not only do you know that's happening while they're running through your shelters trying to get help, the ICE is there to actually allocate them to the cartel in real time and pass them
Wow.
around and not actually help them. So the same structure that the immigrants are coming into the country and being passed around through that system and getting lost is the same way that kids are getting trafficked through like the family courts, the trafficking shelters. It's all the exact same system, just in different areas, and the people that run them is exactly the same, like Hillary Clinton and stuff. She even started the programs for CFS, Child and Family Services, in Canada the year that I was taken. Like her and her husband funded it.
My goodness. That is so low.
Yes, and the stuff with the children, like I said, my oldest daughter, she got taken by Child and Family Services, and I lost all parental rights at the time, and she got molested badly when she was in care. I ended up having to fight 3.5 years. I got her back by putting a lot of pressure on the government, but this is something that you see happen a lot, and
Yeah, it happened to my granddaughter.
they say 83% of the time they take a child, they're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
80,
They took my granddaughter and she was molested at 4. Yeah.
it, this whole situation, this is what's out of control, because you have the government that's funding the taking of children, and then when you take those children, they end up, a lot of them get molested in care, they're worse off in care, they end up in the prison system, in the prostitution and all these things, and they're being exploited and so forth, and everybody else is benefiting from them. We have to start rethinking what we're doing, because now when you look at the Epstein files, the reason why people like Epstein get away is because there is like a network like that in every community. And I can guarantee you that right now, because I watched the same mentality that these people that are displaying now is what I dealt with like 20 some years ago when I was dealing with child family services and so forth. They have the same mentality. These people, they're sick. Like, I mean, how
Yes,
how to
and
feel you?
the nationwide system is the ones that are supposed to be helping us, like the FBI and so forth. They're in cahoots with them as well, because there are several women in the Epstein files who had filed reports with the FBI, and they just didn't do anything, just let it go. Just like Larry Nasser, that doctor with the Olympic gymnasts. Several Olympic gymnasts had told the FBI and other authorities what he was doing to them, and they just ignored it for years and years and years.
Yep, that's exactly what happened to me. So I ended up making a report to the FBI as well for the trafficking, what was going on with me. And the FBI went and looked in their records. They're like, yeah, you're a native under our American law. Like you have every right to be here and you're fine or whatever. They
Yeah.
said that they were going to look into the file. Also, they directed us to the bio or the what counterterrorism unit, and took my dad's information and like his research of what's going on, directed me to go to Austin, Texas, so that I could continue an original filing, and did absolutely nothing. And I continued to get passed around and trafficked and abused, videos taken of me sold online, like held at gunpoint, drugged and things like that, raped. They did zero. The police, the local police and state police, absolutely zero, not done anything. When it came to the people who are actually hunting you down, though, they make one call to the police or whatever, or actually not really police. They'll try to use other agencies against you that are not really police, like ICE, because
Mm,
ICE is just grabbing anybody and
yeah,
everybody and their dog for no reason whatsoever, even
yes,
American born citizens who just have a
absolutely.
tan skin color, and arresting them. Even there was a native lady in Arizona that they arrested, and the whole, like,
Oh,
she's Navajo and
several,
people were going
several
crazy.
Navajos they arrested. Yeah.
And yeah, and people are Americans, so the people who are hunting people down, they will call people like ICE and tell them go after this person, and they will, and then you'll call the police and the police will tell them to go away. But if you don't have the time to do that, man, God have mercy on you.
Mm. I'm so sorry you went through all of that, honey. That's horrible. Breaks my heart. I don't know how you got your head back on, but you seem to be doing pretty good. Well, now at least you're presenting that. I'm sure we all have moments in our privacy, but you're really giving a good voice for people who have been through trauma like that, so that people who don't understand it have a good idea what it's like.
Well, and this is why.
Well, this is why they kept trying to separate me from my father the entire time, because like even though my dad was getting financially destroyed in Canada, had his house and everything taken from him, bank account shut down, he was in a really bad position. Just being able to ask his advice and help me navigate all the crazy stuff that was happening in US kept me alive, but people kept trying to separate me so that I would actually like lose it for real. And people know that like on every level of people who actually deal with the trafficking systems and the victims, they know the only way they actually get out of those situations is if like maybe they have a man in their family, like a father who helps them, or like, someone in the community that's a man who helps, or like a boyfriend or a husband ends up coming along that they meet and helps them out of it. Because once women are trapped in that situation, it's almost impossible. And because she doesn't know how men are navigating things and triangulating her, because she doesn't think like a man, like women are very different,
Yeah.
like mentally and emotionally. She's stuck. There's no way for her to get out, and she's just going to be there until either she dies, goes missing, or some nice man by the grace of God comes along and helps her. And because we don't actually have, like, the police are not doing their job and all these other people, even when they do try to help them, there's so many things along the way that they do to screw these women over and try to make them insane, literally, that they don't get the help that they need, which is why you need someone who actually cares about you and understands you to help you grow through the process and like keep your sanity and be like, this is what's going on. Don't listen to these people who are gaslighting you and lying to you, because they'll try to make you feel good, but they're acting to kill you. And I watched like people at every level in every place that I was doing this for years, and it absolutely stunned me. And then when my father would come in and I'd have him on the phone or like on FaceTime trying to talk to these people like in government or like people who are trying to attack me or whatever, I would see when my father would try to reason with them how quickly they would start to threaten me. Like even the police were like, we will kick you, and we will kick you out of this shelter and put you on the street in like the park, like in the bush in the park, and not help you at all if your father doesn't stop talking to us about this information. And I'm like, you're gonna punish me? Like, it's shocking.
My goodness. Well, thank goodness you have a great father. Thank goodness for you. So many, it worries me because so many women don't have a man in their life, a good father or brothers or anything.
No.
This is one of the reasons why they went after families, because you listen to pedophiles that talk about stuff and they say, what do they fear the most? They're like a strong father. Because why?
Yeah.
If they catch him, he'll rip them apart limb from limb with his bare hands if he has to. Because there's no excuse for that, but he's not going to have the same fear if it's a single mother. So when they break apart the families, this allows trafficking and pedophiles to have way more access. Because, I mean, nobody should be a single parent, period. But it's worse when it's a mother than a father, because men, we can take more abuse. So we're physically able to handle it more, where women are getting more worn out and so forth, and it makes them vulnerable. Then they're like the lowest socioeconomic status, easy to prey on. This is where what they're doing and making like the family court and everything that stuff all adversarial. It who's suffering? The children, and nobody cares about children. And I'm like, effectively, children have no rights because the state was just like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and oh, I don't like what you said, or I just feel like it, I'm just going to take your kid. Right?
Yeah. And also like the men, they don't have any rights. It's like, what about like the fathers who want their children? Because if we're being honest about the biology, the woman incubates the child and she fertilizes for sure, but the child in and of itself is the sperm from the man because it carries the XY chromosome and determines the sex of the child. We only carry the X, not the XY. So, and even the placenta comes from the sperm. So it's like it's a two partner job. It's not just the woman that creates life, it's us coming together to do it. So it's really unfair to fathers who want their child. They're there to support the child, and then the mom is just like, well, maybe I'll just be spiteful or I'll be wicked, and I'll use this as, because a lot of women say, if you don't do what I say, I'm just going to abort this child. And that happens to men all the time. You see it online. The men are like crying outside of the abortion clinic. They
Or
tried to
once the
stop the
baby's
woman.
there, they'll say, you can't see it. I won't let you have any access to
And
your
give it
own
away.
child. Yeah.
Exactly. And then maybe use the man as, okay, or if he doesn't want to have the child, and then it's like, now she's saying, well, I'm going to keep it to spite you and you're going to pay me child support and all this other stuff. So it's like there's no consistency. It's a form of like a use of abuse of when you want
Yeah.
rules for thee but not for me. And so it's like either we're going to have the consistency where both parents take responsibility and accountability for their actions and put the laws in place for that, because that would actually prevent people. Like I just saw something today that said Frank Sinatra went to jail many times for seducing married women. It used to be illegal to have those kind of lewd behaviors because you were destroying families and making potential children to be vulnerable to being alone, women to be alone, and homes to just be destroyed. Like that was a crime. And if we're going to do something that's going to be like in that manner, then it needs to be clear across the board while also managing the protection for people who have genuine medical problems where or a life or death situation like a tubal pregnancy, which is a topic. Not even, it's just stuck. It's like the literal thing's just dead, stuck in the tube.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand both sides. I understand wanting to preserve the potential life at all costs. But if the mother dies, hello, the baby's going to die too. So
Right.
if the mother lives and the baby dies, then the mother can go on to have another child.
Right.
Right.
You
Even in
know,
the
so that's
even
just
in the case
logic.
e- even in the case where someone is a woman's giving birth and it's the child or the mother, you always save the mother. It makes no sense to save the baby because the baby has a low chance of living if the mother dies anyways. So it's like it's
Yeah,
not conducive. A doctor would always save the mother. So it's like this doesn't even make sense as an argument.
yeah, but there's certain hospitals that are based on certain beliefs and religions that will not save the mother. They will do anything possible to save the baby, even if that means the mother dies.
This is where you have to look at things on a case by case basis. You cannot use a hard and fast rule. Like 'cause even as a Christian, and I look at the Bible, God, you see this happening all the time. They look at the case and they determine it using the principles and apply it to that case because every situation is different. So I can't sit down and say unilaterally that this is going to apply. Yes, this is wrong, but at the end of the day, like for example, if you have to save a child or a mother, and the mother like got 7 other children, do you let the mother die and leave those other children like without a
Yeah,
parent? Like these are things that people have to they have to consider, right? Like, and these are things that you can't just blanket sit down and say that this is going to apply because this is why policy doesn't work. You have
Yeah.
to understand
exactly.
the principle and apply it to the situation
Right.
case by case, and you have to show mercy and compassion while you're doing this. Like, and so if people were doing this, they would have a lot. People would have a lot of understanding, saying, "Listen, you know what? Our primary goal is to preserve life." But we have to look at the situation and determine what is the best in that situation, given the complex nature of things, because not every situation is the same.
Right.
And
That's exactly right.
this,
When I had my pregnancy that ended in death when I was 20 weeks along, I went to a checkup, an OBGYN checkup, and she said, "We've got a problem. We're going to have to put you in the hospital." And of course, I started freaking out and getting concerned. Well, they put me in the hospital, and the next day they said, "Look, you got a problem. This baby is not going to survive. It's 20 weeks gestation. They don't survive at that age. But you need to give birth now because my water had already broken. And once your water breaks, you're on a timeline. If you don't give birth soon enough, you get sepsis and then you could die." And she said, "Do you want to take a chance in dying?" And I said, "I want this baby. I'll try to keep it as long as I can." She said, "You have 2 other children. Do you realize that you're taking your life in your hands and you could be taking yourself away from these children?" I didn't want to wrap my head around the fact that I was going to lose this baby. So I kept trying to, I can do this. I'll just, not get infected. Well, that wasn't possible. So I was devastated. I'm still devastated just to think about it and talk about it is very hard. But I had to think that, yeah, I had these other 2 kids, and if I survived, I could try again. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm really sorry you had to go through that. That's really difficult. And you were a lot further
I,
along than I was. So I can't even imagine
the
that. And
first
I
three
think people, that's why
miscarriages,
doctors
yeah, the first three
go ahead.
miscarriages were hard, but I went through labor. I gave birth. I held him um, every year on his birthday. I lose it. And that was back in 97. So almost 30 years ago. And
Wow.
that's something I'll never get over. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think no, no, it's totally justifiable. I think that that's why doctors need to look at things as a case by case basis, and they need to be compassionate, like my dad said, because a woman in that situation, she's going to be very emotional and distress. She's under duress. Like, she doesn't want to think about, I have to sacrifice like myself or my child or whatever. Even myself, like when I was going to the doctor, like, and getting the blood test to see if the HCG was going down, I was the whole time hoping, okay, well, maybe it'll go back up, or maybe it's not that. Like, you feel a certain level of guilt and
Yeah.
responsibility. You feel terrible and you want to do everything you can to fix it, but there's literally nothing you can do, or else you yourself are going to die, and you just have to go through the process. But that's just the natural instinct as a woman and a mother. But there needs
Yeah.
to be people there that are like, you know what, you do have children, your life is valuable too, and it's not your fault what's happening here, but we need to save you too, so you can take care of your family, because your family still needs you. And having this child would, both of you will die, and it wouldn't be fair to anybody. So it's like, a lot of the people, I think, as well, like even in your situations, how far along you were, I think a lot of doctors are taking advantage of that state of women, and on top of the lack of proper health care that people are getting. And I think that's why a lot of people are actually dying, like, if we're being
Yeah.
honest. And that's a really
Sure.
scary thing, especially with the laws of what you're saying right now. If they're doing that, then that's a
Yeah.
terrifying place to be.
It's horrible. I'm so glad that this was back in 97 and not now, because I'd be dead.
The,
Definitely. And my third son was born in '01. So he would have never been here if I had died.
it,
So, yeah.
the what I mean, this our society, some things are gone wrong a lot right now, and I just want to kind of circle back onto the kind of the issue about the exploitation, because I remember that I came in, I messaged you after you made you had a video of you talking about how there's some aspects of pornography is fake, and oh yeah, I should put myself on the screen instead of talking.
There you are.
Yeah, and so forth, because there's a lot of this tied to exploitation, because with a lot of the big tech companies coming, like, there was a study here in Alberta, and they said that 98% of children were exposed to pornography before the age of 18, and a third of them before age 10, right?
Oh,
You cannot give a child under 10 pornography. They're finished. They're
yeah.
finished. Like,
Yeah.
this is like being able to molest them without actually having to touch them, because
Yeah.
their brain is not developed for this. And so
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot of more depraved behavior by children, because if you give them pornography at that age, they don't have the breaks in their brain to say stop this. They're just going to keep going and going and going and going,
Yeah.
and by the time they're 16, they're into some really depraved stuff.
Oh,
and
yes.
and so there's a lot of grooming, like, I mean, that goes on when they're doing this, and people are profiting. Or, like, for example, you saw with Pornhub, they were having kids raped and stuff like that, and they were making profit off of that. And the guy, I had watched somebody was videoing one of the people there, and they're like, yeah, can sex traffickers use your platform? Yeah, we know that. Yeah, who cares? Like, that was basically it. I'm like,
Oh.
it, there's one thing where people are doing something and they're consenting, they're legal, whether people like it or
Yeah.
not. It's not against the law. But when you're exploiting someone and you're raping them, and especially a child, and then leaving that there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and just, they had, like, I think 10 people, and they had hundreds of thousands of hours, and they had tons of child
Oh,
pornography sitting there.
that's so sick.
Yes,
Sick.
like, and this is why when I have a problem, like, because somebody was talking about this, and they said, when you were before, when people had to go and get pornography, they had to go to a video store, and you had to show
Right.
ID and so forth. Now,
Lisa
anybody
Ann
with
was talking about it.
a cell phone,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and
Well,
kids,
even before video stores, they had theaters, and you had to actually go to the theater to see the
Right.
movie. They have a show out now. I think it's on HBO Max. It's called Euphoria. And the first couple of segments first couple of episodes, they have a scene in there where, and it's all about these teens, and they're getting high and they're having sex. And this guy and this girl, they're in high school and they start doing it, and he's getting really rough. And she's like, "Hey, stop." And he's like, "I'm sorry, I've never done this before." And she's like, "I haven't done it before either. So, like, chill." He's like, "I don't know how. I've watched stuff, I've watched porn, and that's where I got these moves, and I'm sorry." And yeah, I can totally see that. When I was in the business way back in the day, I left in 91. I've told many times, we are an example. Like it or not, we're an example to the youth of how to do this. They're never going to see an explicit example like this anywhere else. They don't teach it in health class. They're curious. They're going to seek this material out. We are an example. So act like it. Be responsible. They
Yeah,
didn't
I
get it.
agree.
They
We
just,
talked about this.
just anything to make a dollar.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if you're referencing the Zendaya character. Someone asked me about Euphoria the
Yes.
other day, and I've
Yes.
I've never seen the show. I've only seen clips, but it's very disturbing, that whole, I think to some people, like, it paints some sort of picture, but I'm sure it romanticizes it for people. And anyone who's ever grown up in any of those type of hectic and chaotic environments, they look at that as if, like, that's not the way you do that, because that actually promotes that lifestyle as engaging and exciting for young children, especially like what you said about the sex and stuff. A lot of young people, their first interaction, Lisa Ann, she talked about this. We showed a clip about it on our show. And she was saying that women aren't having sex because they're so scared of men sexually, because men are watching the choking and the spitting and the slapping, and they are doing this to the women, and the women, they're not really that stuff. Like, and when women do see things, they see more romanticized, soft and caressing and gentle stuff. That's more what they're
Yeah.
engaging with as young girls. So the shock is so much to them that they are just not dating. They're dating women, or they're just
Yes.
not having sex at all. And that's why a lot of women are turning gay, because not only are they traumatized by what society is telling them a woman should be, which is completely not what we are as women, like on a biological or a spiritual level, but also because what their sexual experiences are becoming with men. Very few people actually know how to bond genuinely, from connection, and build that engagement together, which is so sad.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I have done several videos on my YouTube channel about this. And what really, it doesn't really surprise me as much as it's terrifying. I've had a lot of men leave comments saying, "No, women like that. Women like it rough. They like to be choked. They enjoy it." I'm like,
There,
where
there,
are these women?
there,
I
there,
mean, I was in that business, and I only know one woman who enjoyed that out of all
What?
there,
the women I worked with in that business.
there. The one thing I wanted to say is that when the children get the pornography, people don't talk about what happens when the girls watch it, right? Because
Yeah,
this is teaching them what women should be. And
yeah,
listen to women, and some women thought that this was the way that sex should be. And so when it happened with boys, they just got that. And then you would get some of the women would shy away, or some would become extremely hypersexual, like, say, for example, like Bonnie Blue, who's off the rails.
oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was that contest, who could do the most outrageous number of men or whatever crazy thing they were doing. That's just, again, sick. That's not
Yes.
sex. That's a freak show.
Yes, she's pregnant now, unfortunately, now that and she's still doing this, which is so terrible and so
Oh my
disrespectful to a young
gosh.
child. But, honestly, a lot of the women, even the ones that they're starting the watching porn at a young age, and I'm Gen Z, first year of Gen Z. I'm born in 97, so I'm 29 years of age.
Oh,
But the women in my generation, because we got exposed to sexual content in what they called sex ed. And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything about, it wasn't really that. It was just like a sneaky way to come in and do that weird stuff. It would, I was the first year, I think, of kids that really had to do all that crazy stuff. But regardless, even the women who are seeing how aggressive the porn is and they're watching that on the, you know, from like 10 years old or younger, by the time they get into sexual relations with people, it's still shocking and uncomfortable to those women, and they do get scared. There's just no other of sexual experiences for them. So they keep going around with these men getting the same physically abusive, or you know, that's what they're taught, like the choking and the slap.
Yeah.
The men don't know any better, and then the women are taught that this is all that they deserve and all that they should take, because they don't know what a proper situation looks like, but they're traumatizing themselves over and over just by doing the experience. They think they like it because that's all they've experienced, even though it's hurting them. And until they find something healthy and normal, they're not going to get out of that cycle. It's like the people who are doing this are traumatizing the children to abuse and accept abuse and just repeat the cycle of hurting themselves, like, and not get out of it and to think it's normal. It's like
Yeah.
they themselves don't even realize the damage that they're doing until they get
Yeah.
out of it. Like they're in, like they're too deep in.
I agree completely. And I think that one might be forgiven if they thought that this was all done on purpose, that these movies were made like this on purpose to influence society to accept this kind of thing. But they wasn't. It was just people trying to make a fast buck. I remember when we were shooting on film, and then all of a sudden we went to video because video came out and now we could do it. Now, people who always wanted to make a movie but didn't have enough money to shoot a movie on film, because back then it was like anywhere from 150 to 500,000 to shoot a movie. When you got onto film, now you could do it for under $50,000. So now you're shooting on video. You got a cheap way to shoot. So all these people who'd always wanted to make movies but never had the money or the ability to do so got into the business. And we went from, say, 5 to 10 productions being released per month to over 300 when video came in. Then the same thing happened again when we went into digital because it got even cheaper. Well, when you've got that many videos coming out every month, that's a lot of competition. So, how do you get attention? You do something crazy that's never been done before, gonzo stuff. And that's how that started. And it's just escalated and gone from
But
bad to much, much worse.
you got to look at it this way, like the people that were down there, because I talked to Vic Legida, he was a producer, we interviewed him. The people that are down there, they're not, this is not where that at, because most of them are trying to just make some money and live or whatever. We're looking at further up the chain, right? The people, the big companies, like the people that you see on the Epstein lists that are owning companies like this, they understand what they're doing, and they understand that with this progression of technology, how people are going to operate, because they study this and so forth. We had to learn how about in with part of my degree, we had to study technology and how it changed people from the Industrial Revolution forward. So these people understood that these types of things were happening, and then they were then started to use the platforms to push it to where the people who are making it didn't want them to go, because most people are sitting, like, pretty much I haven't heard anybody sit down and say, well, I'm making this content for children to consume. No, they're all like, no. But the
Yeah.
people who own the companies, these tech companies, they're working together and funneling over there because they're making more money, right? Like, and so, and then, some of the people that were working there, like they were sitting down, for example, one guy was saying that if a child was confused about their gender, they could watch this pornography and then figure it out. No, that's called grooming, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why they even have the kids look, they have the, not the kids, the adults in the films looking younger and younger, 12. They make them look like 12, 13. They said on purpose because
Yes.
they're feeding the audience. They said, unfortunately, that's what makes the most money, because there's a lot of perverts who watch porn and they have the fantasies of children, which is so sick that you would even,
Yes.
continue to perpetuate that. But it's like you said, they want to feed whatever makes money, and there's a lot of sickos in America, and the kids are watching this, so they're thinking, okay, when an older person comes and does this to me, that's a good thing. That's really exciting. This is how like I'm gonna have like all like be cool or whatever. And it's like they I feel like the people who are responsible for organizing this, like the elite people, they understand human nature quite well, and human
Mhm.
psychology, and the nature of like boys and girls, and how to attack them, like little boys, in a way that will make them more aggressive and more emotional and more like chaotic, and how to make women more like unstable and under stress, and the things that they need to do on a biological level and visual to actually hurt them, because your eyes, like your brain doesn't understand the difference between reality versus what you see. So like if you're a kid, we saw a neuroscientist talking about this, analyzing how pornography affects small children, because they were like, children also don't have the judgment and reasoning centers that an adult does. It sees something and just does it because that's how a kid learns. So it sees Spider-Man and then it's jumping off the couch by the end of the movie. So when it
Yeah.
does that with porn, the brain doesn't know how to differentiate between what level of normalcy or what's right and wrong or what it should do, what it shouldn't do. And it just starts finding ways to replicate it, and it deteriorates the child like on a mental, like a brain level, and even biological. So there's so many different side effects. And
Yeah.
again, I think this is 100% why a lot of women predominantly are the ones going to the trans agenda and gay and mutilating themselves, because they're so traumatized by the time they turn 18. They're so worn out from everything that society
Yeah.
has done to them, even during the school process, that they're just like, I can't function like this anymore. I can't live. And people think that my generation is a lot weaker than the previous ones, and that might be true in some cases, but the level of abuse and trauma that the Gen Z, like the younger generations, have had to go through from such a small age by the time they're 18, previous generations had a different type of problem, you know? So I feel like it's just the way that it increased is like on ways, like, you know what I'm saying, just such a grander
Yeah.
scale that's having more effects.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think basically it all boils down to a capitalistic society that is more concerned, excuse me, with making money than it is with doing what's right or setting a good example. And you see that not only in the adult film industry, but everywhere we look. The computers, the video games, we know it's not healthy to let little children play video games, but yet we've got iPads for them that are specifically for kids, games that are made specifically for kids. And it's so easy as a parent to just turn on the television and plug in a video or give them an iPad and say, play your game. And they get addicted to it and they love it. And the minute you take it away, they have a tantrum. But you look at the brain scans and you see the damage that we're doing. Does anyone stop? No, because it's convenient, because parents are overworked. They don't have enough time to themselves to get dinner ready, to clean the house, to do all their work they need to do, to make the money they need to do. It's just one thing leads to another. And it's all about making money in the bottom line. And that's the priority. And I think as humans on earth, it doesn't matter what nation you're from or what gender or what beliefs you have, we got to get back to doing what is right and doing what benefits us as a human race, what benefits our children, what benefits our parenting, that kind of thing, rather than does it make money? Because right now that's our priority. Does it make money? Is it, how much does it cost? Does it make money? Can I make more money doing this? We
The
got to find something better.
I think the biggest issue wasn't capitalism, it was taking away accountability. When you had smaller communities and people were accountable to each other, then that kept it in check. But once you
Yeah.
started to get these massive multinational corporations that that are faceless, like there's somebody sitting in some tower like halfway across the world deciding your fate. There's no accountability for that. And so when that element began to happen, then it started to get out of control, because normally if you were in a community and you did shady business, you went out of business because nobody did business with you. So
Yeah.
when we have that accountability, things stay in check. But when we don't have accountability, this is where problems happen. And this, like,
Unknown caller. I have to take this. This is my doctor.
no worries.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Hello?
And
you know what? Even
on another
on
level,
another level, it's like, how come
we can
we can afford,
like
like she said, they're taking the parents out of the home because they don't even have the ability to, they don't have the time for their kids. So why did we have money to send billions and billions to Ukraine, but we didn't have the money to actually allow children to be at home with their mothers, like mothers to be paid to be stay at home so that they can have more time with their children so they can get the attention they need. All of those billions and billions and billions that went overseas just in the last couple of years alone, not even including like previous years, and they're still sending all these other countries. Why couldn't they put the money into restoring families and communities and strengthening them? That would actually bring more money back to the economy. It would strengthen the economy, and men would actually get paid more. Women would actually be able to stay home and take care of their children. Children would thrive, they'd be healthier, women would be healthier. The men's health would increase because they would be getting more work with more purpose, and they wouldn't be slighted out of their opportunities from DEI women. It's like, why are we not doing that? Like, if we're being so for real right now, because they're talking about crisis and people dying overseas. Okay, well, we have our own people in our countries dying because they're doing things that are not that are not good for them in as men and women. They're in positions and roles that are completely opposing to their biology, and it's now catching up to us. Not only are we not reproducing in the ways that we should as like people having families, we're below the rate. We can't catch up if everyone even has one child. We'll need to have at least 4 or 5 to catch up. And on top of that, the 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 ability to even have children is going down because people are going against their biological roles, and women and men are like, this testosterone of men are even going lower. And the sperm quality is dropping because degeneracy is going up. So like the sperm of of a man who smokes and drinks barely moves. Like you're shooting blanks a lot of the times. Like it's not as strong as a man who is in good health. He's eating well and he's exercising, getting good sleep or whatever, going to work. So that and the women with their stress, apparently at a certain level of stress for women, their body can't carry sons as easily. So it's like, at what point are we going to start putting money back into the actual families so we can have an actual country? Because you can keep chasing money all you want. Eventually, someone else will take over the country and be utilizing it, while all of the people who are originators from the country will be gone and no more.
Yeah. And what you say is very true, especially about the sperm count and how that affects everything. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go pretty soon here. I can't hear you, hon.
Oh,
Dale.
can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I understand that you had some health issues, and so, that's fine. I mean, I just wanted to, kind of wrap things up here since you have to go here. I just
Hey,
wanted to ask you a question, like, because
sure.
you talked about like the thing how things were when you were in the industry and as to now. What is the biggest difference that you see between then and now? Because it seems to be a lot more problematic with the way things were going. So what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on it?
there's a lot of differences between then and now. As an actress, what someone would have to do nowadays is way out of my comfort zone. And what I was doing back in the 1980s, a lot of people would have said that was really tame because I had certain restrictions. I wouldn't do anything involving the back door. I wouldn't do things with 5 or 6 different people, So that even back then, other people were doing. And by saying I wouldn't do it, some people were saying, well, you're not really, you know, a porn star. Well, I don't care what you call me. you know, just like the old adage, just don't call me late for dinner. The thing back then was we had stars, like the Vivid Girls and people that were known for being the star in certain movies. Nowadays, we don't even have those movies per se. Everything is just short little scenes online. The advantage of having a star following, so to speak, is that we could go out on the road and perform in gentlemen's clubs. And what I made doing movies was nothing compared to what I made on the road dancing. There were weeks where I made $20,000 dancing 4 shows a day, 6 days a week on the road. Nowadays, that's really not available to these women because, other than Bonnie Blue, there's not very many people that are known, very well known across the board for what they do. There's so many actresses in the business now that there isn't really an upper echelon that everybody's like, oh, I know her, or I love her, or I don't like what she does, but I like her. There's just really not that name recognition. So you can't go out on the road and capitalize on it. I was on the road about 20 weeks out of the year dancing, and then I'd make 2 movies. So I think that was a major loss for a lot of the actresses in the business, that they can't capitalize it on it that way. Because they can't go out on the road and dance and make money that way, they have to do more sex to make their money. And because it's the industry gonzo, crazy kind of stuff nowadays, you can't just do regular sex like I did, one-on-one with a man. And that's pretty much my limit. I did do some scenes with some women, and I did do some scenes with 2 guys. But the stuff that they do nowadays, and
Well,
this abusive stuff. I mean, I refused to work with Rocco Siffredi because I had seen him in a scene previously where he put his hands around the girl's throat. And I told him, don't you do that to me. And we got into the scene, and his hand went like this. And I said, cut. And I walked away, and I said, I'm not finishing this scene. I'm not going back. No, I'll never work with him again. I don't think I could survive financially in that business if I didn't agree to do those kinds of things.
yeah, I think with the amount of competition now, it forces that because
Yeah,
people have to do the more extreme stuff to get name for themselves, and it's just
yeah,
going to drive itself rather than just having the people who used to force them. Because now, if you want to make money, this is just what you're going to have to do to make yourself
yeah,
stand out, and it's going to end badly. Because I look at what Bonnie Blue's doing, and
exactly.
her social media, and Lily Phillips they're on TikTok, and they are going and attracting people that are probably more than likely seeing their content, because Bonnie Blue goes and she gets the guys right when they turn 18. So how did they know who you were? Because they're out there like literally grooming them before they turn 18 so that they can come there
Yeah.
and lose their virginity. That's disgusting. I'm sorry.
I have to agree 100%. That
Yeah.
is disgusting.
And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I mean, we this is a conversation that needs a lot of time, but I know you're short on time here. So
yeah.
before we close here, how can people reach you and how can they help
Well, thanks for asking. I do have the YouTube channel. I read all of the comments that go on there. I have an X account on Blue Sky, and I do have Twitter, TikTok. Yeah, TikTok. I'd say X, but we all say Twitter nowadays, and even though it's X. So yeah, those are the main ways to get a hold of me. I also have courses on the Medicine Wheel teachings on Udemy. I have some books out. You can find those on Amazon. There's 5 of them out now. I'm working on the 7th one. Yeah, I have an autobiography out, but it stops at about 2000, right about there. So I should probably write something to get from there to here. But that's pretty self-evident, really. I mean, people can tell that I've left that business and started focusing on the Native American medicine wheel teachings and medicine stories.
All right. And so if anybody's watching, her links are in the description on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and on Vocal, so you can follow her on the socials or any of that stuff, or check out her books and so forth. Yeah, so I'm going to close with a prayer, and I'll give my daughter her final
Awesome.
thoughts before we go here. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy, and all the things that you've done for us. And Lord, with Hypatia's health, can you bless her and help her to get some healing and relief in that situation. And Father, watch over all the people who are standing up for the children. And Lord, I ask of you to get the men and the women to come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, our nation, and protect the children from this evil wickedness that we're seeing this day is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Oh,
Thanks,
thank
Steph,
you.
for the prayers always. And yeah, thank you, Hypatia Lee, for coming on and joining us. We're definitely gonna have to have you back on again. It was very awesome. And I liked hearing about your experience and your knowledge and stuff. I think this is very important for people to think about and to understand. And people need to have more compassion and open-mindedness, because people who come from different walks of life have a different view of like different areas that none of us would even be able to get information from. Like, no one would ever know the ins and outs of the industry unless they were in there either shooting or an actor or something, or and these are important because all of these things affect things like the Epstein files and the trafficking, and it gives a bigger picture as to what we're all experiencing now. And this is why we need to work together and have some sort of sense about how we go about things and respect the knowledge and experiences of people. So I really appreciate you coming on. It's also very awesome that you're a feathered friend and native too, and you speak Cherokee, so that's awesome. I hope that you feel better. I know you're not feeling well, and I hope that everybody keeps you in your prayers. And everybody definitely go check her out on the various social medias. We'll have her linked in the description, and we'll check you guys in the next one.